Collins.
Here.
Hinderman. Here. Hole.
Here.
Schrader.
Here.
White. Here. All present.
Thank you. Proof of giving public meeting notice, Aaron? Yep, notices were posted at both schools, sent to the village of Dickeyville and Cuba City City Hall, as well as members of the media on Tuesday, January 19th. Thank you. Item 3 is public recognition. Do we have anyone that wants to speak?
We do. We have Amy Richard and Molly Lucy signed up to speak.
Whichever or whomever.
Our main focus is to really look at the remote learning spot. I know there's many people that are continuing to take like a spring break, stuff like that. So their return potentially would be nice if they would be able to do remote learning when they get back, just as a precautionary. And then obviously there's different situations. Some people are getting into bigger gatherings yet. Some people still have Christmases. So, maybe they don't have symptoms on day one, but maybe they could do remote learning for a week and kind of wait and see if they do have any symptoms or not, to have that as a possibility.
Yeah, and I would add, just to think through, some of these kids have been on 3, 4, 5 quarantines. And that's really hard on some of these students. So I think when we look at the opportunity of them to make sure that they're not in the quarantine situation, to avoid situations like you said, Amy, if there is gatherings or things like that they could avoid, I think we need to offer them that opportunity.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate it. Thank you. If there's anything else. Okay. All right. Thank you. Item 4 is the consideration of the consent agenda. Are there any items A through D that the board would like pulled for further discussion? Hearing none, would somebody move?
I'll move to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Is there a second?
I'll second. Andrews.
Yes.
Bowden.
Yes.
Collins.
Yes.
Hinderman. Yes. Hole.
Yes.
Schrader.
Yes.
White. Yes. Motion carried.
Administrative reports. We're going to start off with the 2019-20 Building and Grounds report. Brian or Ken, whoever wants to go.
She is going to put it up on the.
Oh.
Don, I'll turn this so you can see.
Sarah and
Brad will get it. We can make it work, okay?
Sorry, we get close here. Let me get out of the camera. Sure. I'll block my face. Go ahead.
You got it ready to go.
Is this a cartoon or?
Put together a little video. Technology is great when it works the way you want it to. They must have done a complete shutdown on me. I apologize. I had to set, you saw me, I had it up.
Yeah. First, I got to sneak in and see on the bottom there, this was created and designed by my own personal HR department, and consisting of my wife and daughter. I know 2020 has been a struggle for most, but we kind of look at it as a big opportunity. We had 3 months additional on top of summer vacation, 3 months, to complete a lot of tasks that we generally would have never had time to do. Filled out a sheet the other day, and I think I counted 240 tasks that we completed. Now, I'm not going through each and every one of them, but kind of picked out the main ones that we did get done. We started off with lighting projects, and I kind of want to give kudos to George Morrissey and Jake Salzman with the city. They provided the boom truck manpower to replace the LED parking lot lights, or the lights out here and in the main parking lot at no cost to the school. I called George, no questions asked. Jake was over, you know, wasn't ideal weather, but they did it. And it's nice having that, you know, mutual relationship with them. Through the district buildings, we changed 2,650 light bulbs, converting them from fluorescent to LED. So now the entire elementary school is completely LED. I know when the previous maintenance director was here, he did get a quote for switching the high school over, and it was about 70,000. We did it at about right around kind of what I figured with labor, the lights and everything, at about 25,000. And the nice thing is Focus on Energy had a rebate that we got back of $4,200, which is, you know, a good savings. While we were doing that project, we decided we were going to replace the ceiling tiles. So if we go to the pictures, there's the parking lot lights. That would be the middle school, high school administrative parking lot up here. And then those are the new LEDs down at the elementary school. George had 2 on his shelf and said he would replace them and then just order 2 new ones, and we didn't have to wait. Everything's the same down there, matches up. So we shouldn't have any more issues with having to change light bulbs or, you know. And here's a picture of the ceiling tiles, the kind of before and after. This is down the Tech Ave hallway. Next on the next big project that we did was we replaced all 4 of the existing boilers. The high school went from 22% efficiency to 99.7% efficient, with generally the need to only run 1 boiler at a time. I mean, when it gets below 0, yeah, the other one might pick up, might come on 10, 15%. We have a program where they switch, lead, lag, reliability, dependability. The only thing we really have to finish is we're instituting a water chemical treatment program for them so that the water doesn't do any damage to the new boilers. For the high school, we saved, if we would have waited, because I know we approved this in July to do, we would have spent probably additional 40 grand if we would have waited on doing that. And out of sheer luck, talking to our Focus on Energy rep, found out they qualified for a $4,500 rebate per boiler. So we recouped, you know, $18,000 of that cost back to the district, which is, you know, another huge savings. There's the 2 boilers down at the elementary school, and they're both the same as the high school. It's a nice touch screen, LED screen, you know, really simple to run, half the space. And then moving on, we got our concrete areas done. This here is the pole vault area. We put a pad around it, so now none of the mats sit in any mud, dirt, you know. And this spring, when we get them out, we're going to actually anchor them to the concrete. So when the next storm comes through, we don't have to worry about them ending out in the outfield and baseball field, because they're not that light to carry back. This is an extension up by the baseball sidewalk on the baseball field track. I guess the reason I did this is you have the porta potty there. You can sit on the corner now, and then if people that are in a wheelchair don't want to roll down to the bottom or don't even want to walk down to the bottom, it's a big enough area now where they can put a chair there, sit, watch the game, this is a baseball bench pad that Joe Vosberg donated the bench for the baseball team. We put it there in hopes that next year they can wrap it off as the best seat in the house for the booster flow auction. Emergency pads at both outdoor bleacher areas, coming down off the steps now, no more mud. And we finally poured the pad to the steps of the press box. There's no more gravel there, so that's all taken care of. Landscaping projects. When I first came here, I remember we had water in the basement nonstop. And that was always, I called it Lake Cuba City right there. So we got 5 loads of dirt, leveled her off, and in the gravel, there's actually a drain tile now that goes to that corner drain and it runs out to the parking lot. No water in the basement, nothing. It's kind of nice, when you have a heavy rainstorm, you don't have to worry about going down there and, mopping out, cleaning out, especially if there's a sporting event or some sort. We also did the rocks alongside the steps down to the track to prevent more erosion there. And then probably our biggest undertaking, and I know the high school students really loved us after this project, because it was the hottest time of the summer and most humid. I don't know how many loads was it, Brian? 7? 7 loads of rocks. We basically hand put in there with buckets, with skid steers, with whatever we could find and, put it in there. This is the front of the bleachers when you're looking at it from the track, where you used to always see the mud coming down, weeds growing. Brian put a silt fence underneath there now. We packed it all tight full of rocks. There's the side view of it. Even the inspector, when he came and looked at it, commended. This is one of the first years that I've been here seeing the bleacher inspections that we didn't have any deficiencies. I think his only comment was some splintered boards in the gym, which was very nice to hear. And then we did right behind the bleachers as well. The next biggest task was the east and west gym air handling units. They've never been operating efficiently, and one of them didn't even operate at all. And finally got the relief fans to assist with the ventilation in the gym. Got them sensor controlled. So this is a before and after picture. This is what I opened the door to. That's dust on the coil. The air blows through there. That goes down to the gym. You can see how thick it is. And I became very up close and personal with the inside of the air handlers. I think I spent over a week on each one, just cleaning and getting them back to where they need to be. And they are in excellent shape. Honestly, they were probably put in, Chuck, probably when it was built. Yeah, and they look like they're brand new. Very simple, very simple to run, very simple to operate. Just got to do the regular maintenance, and honestly, they would go easily another 30 years, no problem. So there, you can see there's another of those before and after. Removed all the louvers, cleaned them, vacuumed them. And this is what we opened the door to on the one side. You can see the filters, there wasn't even filters in it. So, and this is what it should look like after. I crawled into the ductwork. And this is kind of a before shot, and this is what you're seeing of what blows down into the gym. So, obviously you can see me taking a photo with my but you can kind of see how, that's kind of the after of getting it clean. And probably the other biggest thing too is if you're ever in the gym now, the relief fans operate like they're supposed to. Everyone always thought they were exhaust fans. Them are actually relief fans, and those fans are designed to come on and off depending on how much air is needed to be pulled through the gym. So if it senses that not enough air is coming into the gym, like during a game, all of a sudden you'll see them come on. It'll hit its set point, they shut up. Back when I first started here, it was a switch that somebody just walked over and flipped on when they felt like they needed to come on, and now it's actually computer controlled. This was the air handler up on top of the new locker room. If you look to the right on the left side of the picture, you can kind of see the discoloration there. I was starting to pick through the dirt. There's the before. That's one side clean, one side dirt. So basically, it was like trying to run a football field and breathe through a straw. Here's how that one was. It was running at 100% wide open, but not doing anything. So in June, I think it was, Winona Controls, who you guys had contracted to do the building management software for the middle school when it was built, Kramer Brothers did. I had them come down to give me some training. We had agreed upon upgrading the other system that we had, but basically, when we were looking at it, it was like basically just getting a paint job. Didn't do anything but give us nice shiny graphics. So I got with Aaron, we talked, we figured out how we could do this, got the go-ahead. We have integrated, all of the middle schools integrated, 80% of the high school, so pretty much everything except this wing right here is now all laptop controlled, everything. One of the big things that we did do in working with Janet, I have live temperatures on the coolers, freezers, I can see them anywhere. I can go on the laptop, if I'm at the camper, I can go anywhere. So if we get an alarm, I can go on, I can see actually what it is. I loaded the same program on Janet's computer too, showed her how to get to it so that she can look at it, she can see it. The nice thing about it is it is a web-based program, so there's no updates. We don't have to spend $15,000 to, update in 5 years. The other big thing is the schedules. On the old system we had here, I had to go to every room and set the schedule. So like during summer, I would have to go to each and every individual room on the computer, set it, and then remember to go back and turn it back up or turn it back on when school came. Right here is basically a picture of what I see on my laptop. This is the gym area. And weight room, you can see all the temperatures. Even tells me the red boxes are those relief fans. Let me know when they come on, when they go off. I can change everything at that point, right there. It's just a really nice, easy, and user-friendly program. And there's the schedules. That's actually probably the nicest thing that I feel is on there. Like for Christmas, I tried it. Set all the rooms down to 62 degrees, January 4th, had them set at 12:01 to start coming back up to 70. By 7 o'clock, everything was at 70 degrees. It's just nice going home, not worrying, okay, what's going to happen next? And I'm sure Pam will actually like it for the air conditioning next year. She lets me know. One other thing we did is in the training room, we finally got a temperature control in the training room. Otherwise, it was 120 degrees of hot water going through that radiator 24/7. So now it's not a sun on there, it's controlled. And then the univents. This is kind of a blessing and a curse in disguise. When we decided to do the switchover, they had to put their programs on each one of the univents. We have 28. Well, we ran into 16 of them that were not working in some sort of fashion. I had told Aaron, I said, the nice thing about it was, like in the fitness center, 2 of them worked. But the other, 2 out of the 5 worked. Those 2 at least carried it to be, and you really didn't want it warm in there. The other rooms, there was 2 heaters, so they really didn't notice it. But just going in there, whether it was motors, linkage, I can honestly say all 28 are working as they're supposed to be now. And I filtered through the maintenance requests this past weekend from last year. And at this time, we had about 30 actual requests for some sort of a heating issue. This year, besides some of the staff getting familiar with the new thermostats and that, there's only been 3. So that, allows us to do other things, allows us to, find the next thing to do. Thank you, and I just want to say thanks to Chuck. His mentorship this past year has made my job, go a lot smoother. Always, that was one of my fears, is not having that one person you could ask that question to. And with his knowledge, it's been a blessing. So I just wanted to say thanks.
I'll say thank you too.
So, anybody, any questions?
When you were crawling through the air duct, how many times did you quote Die Hard?
I actually found a program from like 1993, and I don't think Coach Pettigrew has changed. And Ms. Lawson can still yell at students, because it echoes through there quite well.
Well, thank you, Brian and Ben. I appreciate all the work you've done in putting that presentation together. So, and thank you, Chuck, for all
I'll
your
say
help.
one thing with what they're doing with the program, it's gonna save us money every day. You know, just look at the boilers are saving you.
Yep.
You know, plus your lighting, I mean, and then the rebate you get back, you can reinvest that in something else.
And today, I was talking with our Focus on Energy rep. We actually have a rep now for our district, and he called me and asked me if it would be okay if some of the other school districts called and possibly set up, they want to come and look and see. Because they're, you know, he told them what we did, and, you know, he said, you guys, it's quite the undertaking to do. You know, but we had the opportunity, we had the time, so, you know, it was kind of nice. I said, yeah, you know, I mean, that's a huge cost saving, and it really wasn't that hard. I mean, we're both standing still, so I think we've only got shocked like once or twice, you know. Yeah.
Well, thank you for seizing the opportunity there and making some positive changes. So,
Because I would say probably this building, they haven't been running this way for 30 years, at least, if not more. You know, and it's time to bring them up because it's gonna save us down the road.
Yeah, and like I said, with them air handlers, I am very confident to say that there's another 25 years in them, easily. You know, and then, because they were built when things were built.
Back in the 60s.
Yep.
thank you. Are there any other questions?
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Beth, would you do the special ed report?
I will.
Carry on down back.
Yeah, sure.
I assume she's coming back.
Once again, it's open enrollment season. So open enrollment.
I'll go where you want to go.
This is good. Open enrollment allows students to apply to non-resident school districts and attend school for several reasons. Parents have to maybe want to open enroll to another district. So the open enrollment window is February 1st through April 30th. And it's students who are 5K through 12th grade are eligible to open enroll to a different school district. And that's allowed only if there's the same program for a 4K student or an early childhood student. So a student that's under 5K, there would be special reasons and needs and things that would have to be in place in order for them to be able to enroll in a different district. Then private school placements are not necessarily open enrollments. We have a couple of schools in our district that fall in our boundaries, so we serve them with Title I and with special ed services. And those are Dickeyville, which is in HGIC, the grade school. I think they're up through 3rd grade. And then St. Rose. But Keeler is in the Southwestern School District, the HGIC for the older grade levels. So we don't serve those students. And they don't need to be open enrolled because they're enrolled in a private school. So if a service plan is needed, those would be the two schools that we would serve, and Southwestern would serve the HGIC in Hazel Green, or in Keeler. So there are reasons that you can deny an open enrollment, and that would be if the pupil is referred for special ed and they haven't completed the evaluation. And that's because when a student has an IEP and they open enroll, we have the opportunity to take a look at the IEP and see if those are services that we can provide. They don't, if we have to hire out extra services or contract like OT or PT or create a new program, then that would be a reason to deny because we're not expected to create a new program or contract out additional services for a student who wants to open enroll. So we set seat limits, which Mr. Olson will talk about, and that requires us to take a look at our current student count projected into next year, see how many seats are full, look at caseloads for special ed teachers and itinerant staff like speech and language, OTPT, that kind of thing. And then determine whether or not we can open up a certain number of seats to whatever regular ed or special ed population there is. If there are more applications than we have seats, then we have to randomly choose with precedence to students who may have a sibling here already in the district. So there were a few reasons that they gave to deny, and that would be like if someone had been expelled or if they were habitually truant from our district as an open enrolled student, you can rescind that, that open enrollment. So every year we'll take a look at our seats and available seats and determine if we need to put a limit in any of the regular or special ed programs. And then every time we get an application in, because there are other windows for alternate applications throughout the year. And then if it's a special ed student, Pam lets me know, we take a look at the IEP and we determine whether or not we can meet the needs of that student in our district. So we will talk about seat limits a little later. And if you have any questions, I'm willing to answer them.
Hearing none, thank you, Deb. Ally, would you give the meeting to high school report?
Yeah, so just to share things from the last month, on December 22nd, we had a coffee truck come to our parking lot out here in front, and it was a really big hit for our staff and students to the point where they actually ran out of supplies to be able to get everybody something for that day. So it was just a fun way to end December here at school and a safe way as well. The kids really enjoyed it. We once again had excellent attendance during our virtual week, January 4th to the 8th. So students came on every hour to attend their classes and did a really nice job of that 612. So very proud of our students and our staff and our parents for supporting that week. It was a very successful planned virtual week for everybody. Finals are taking place this week. So with our structure, with block scheduling, we had finals. We had a review day Monday, finals yesterday. Today, everybody came to school, and then finals will be again tomorrow. So it's different than we've done in the past. They're usually back-to-back days, but because of block scheduling, we had them on Tuesday and Thursday this week. And we also have open campus, which I know the students enjoy the flexibility of those 2 days around our finals. And as long as things continue to go well and the community shares that the students are very well behaved and things like that, we will continue with that open campus. But I do get feedback from the community, which I really appreciate. They do reach out from some of the establishments. Our administrative team is having conversations to start planning for the 21-22 school year. Brainstorming initiatives and different goals that we might have, but it's kind of exciting to be thinking about that as we now get into January and start planning forward. With the start of the second semester and new schedules at the high school, we are reviewing data to group our students for win time. And we use our collaboration time on Friday for that, and teachers can finish that up this Friday if they need to make sure we have our students placed in the right spot for that individual time during the day. The Cuba City High School Booster Club has selected their action athletes for this year. And in the past, we've always announced them at sporting events, but this year we're not really able to do that. So we are changing the way we do that, and every Monday at announcement time, we show a video of one of the Booster Club board members announcing who the recipient is. So we started this on the 11th, and we're going to do it every Monday for 10 weeks. And it's really fun. The parents then are able to come to the office, and we get a picture of our action athlete with their parents to celebrate their accomplishments and all the volunteer work that they do in our community. So I'm very glad that we're able to acknowledge them in that way. The school report card is changing how it looks. So Brad and I went to a training on Monday with CISA 3. It has an entirely different layout than what it had, with some different data points from what we're used to. And so we will be sharing that in the future, but I just wanted to give that heads up that it is going to look different, the next report card that we get. And something for you to look forward to, I guess. We had our freshman registration virtual meeting on Monday night. With the individual scheduling meetings coming up on February 1st and 3rd, Ms. Adler did an outstanding job at organizing and communicating with parents about the event. During the whole group virtual meeting, some of our staff members shared about their programs, their elective teachers, to plant the seed for our incoming freshmen about some of the courses they could take when they're able to choose more of what they want to take. And they did an outstanding job of sharing that information. So I want to thank all the staff that helped with that, and Ms. Adler for her work on that. We had 69 different people logged into our registration meeting on Monday. So that's a great turnout for an online registration meeting for our incoming freshman class for next year. The second Friday count was last Friday on January 8th, and we do not have our final numbers yet at this time. WISE data student snapshot deadlines, that was on December 8th, and Pam Channel is the master of making sure our data is accurate for our students. The DPI collects this information each year, and the information is then reported to the federal government. So information collected on the 8th was the 1920 attendance, discipline, high school completers, career education roster, what classes students, and that would be what classes students take and if they pass or fail, and then the 2021 third Friday enrollment, October 1st child count, and high school graduation requirements. So Pam is so good at making sure we have all that accurate, and we are very thankful for her knowledge on that. And the last thing I want to share is during our January staff meeting, so each month we meet as a whole 612 staff, and I asked our staff to reflect on this prompt. This is what I gave them. List what you have become proficient in that you were not a year ago. And I had them individually reflect on that and make their own lists. And then I put them into groups and had them as groups talk about it, because like all of us, somebody would probably say something like, oh yeah, I know how to do that now too. And it was an interesting activity for us to do, and you will see in your packet, I actually shared with you the list. It is lengthy of different skills the staff feel they were proficient in now that they were not a year ago. It has been challenging, but it is also exciting to see how much we have grown through this experience. And I just want to say how very proud I am of my staff. So you can see, like I said, it's in your packet, but each group listed all of the things they're proficient in that they weren't a year ago. So, thank you. Does anybody have any questions?
Would I dare even ask, the new report card, would that be a problem in figuring out how we would compare versus last year, or are they making any linkage?
Well, last year, we didn't take the forward. So we don't even have data from last year.
We didn't get any questions wrong last year.
Yeah, we're
First
good.
year ever.
Yeah.
You're starting over again.
Yeah,
It's a lot more internal comparison,
it is.
like to your own subgroups as opposed to necessarily throughout the entire state.
In the past, the report card spoke a lot about it. Well, like Brad said, your subgroups, but you needed to have 20 students in a subgroup before it really counted towards your report card. Now they're changing that to be a target group, and it's the bottom 25%. So you might have some students that actually score proficient that might be in your bottom 25% that are considered your target group, that are part of your score. So they've really changed it up from what it used to be because of all the small schools that do not have enough students in a subgroup to be considered for the growth score.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Are there any other questions for Ellie? Thank you, Brad.
I just want to start by letting everybody know I yielded some of my time to Ben earlier, so I'm going to try to keep it moving. Our ELA curriculum committee has narrowed our selection down to 5 resources. We're evaluating them to identify the best fit and the product that will be best for our school to purchase with next year's ELA budget money. At the same time, we have a social studies curriculum committee that has also narrowed their selections. We have one that we really want to dig a little bit deeper in and make sure it's appropriate, that touches on the new standards for social studies that are inquiry-based and make sure that that is something that's going to align and work best for us before we, go ahead and pull the trigger on that decision. But we just want to dig a little bit deeper before we make that final choice. Our students have embraced the Wisconsin winter, especially in PE. Our PE teacher discovered the snowshoes that I think have been in hiding for a while and got those out and had all of our kids in 3rd through 5th grade snowshoeing and out moving and getting exercise despite the fact that it's the winter months. And so I'm really excited that Miss Garrison has kids involved in active and outdoor events. All of our students in all grade levels celebrated Martin Luther King Jr. Day this past Monday, learned about civil rights and the need to treat everyone equally and with respect. And I think with all the events happening in the world around us, they did it in a very appropriate manner and in a way that presented kind of a big picture of what we need to do and how we need to treat each other, because I think that's the generation that's going to help us get there. Our students in 4K had a great day making and exploring homemade Play-Doh not too long ago. They were able to actually keep their Play-Doh and allow that to be a part of what they use when they break out into centers or do small group work. So just kind of homemade resources and kids having fun with it and being able to create their own thing. It's neat to see those hands-on activities. The week of January 11th through the 15th, we recognize all staff members who serve as crossing guards. A lot of the assistants at the elementary level share those duties in the morning and help our kids get across the streets safely. I was lucky enough to fill in today in the morning and help out with that. Of course, it happened to be the coldest day of the year so far. I don't know if that was planned or accidental, but we are lucky to have such willing and caring staff to do those duties and help make sure kids get across the streets safely before and after school. We are currently taking the STAR test to get our mid-year data and see the progress students have made from the beginning of the year. I know I've had a number of students run to the office to show me they made it from the red to the green or from the yellow to the green and the progress that they're making. And I attribute that to a few things: the hard work of our staff, reduced class sizes, thanks to the interns being able to get some extra special attention for students who really need it, and the group in this room for allowing our kids to be face-to-face. I think it's a huge advantage. So we will use that data to identify areas where we have opportunity for growth and plan interventions if needed, or extensions if that's the case. I want to add that, as we mentioned through the report card, the forward exam is still on for this year. There's no indication that it's going to be canceled. We were able to sit through a meeting and learn a little bit via Zoom about the details of when the forward exam was going to occur and different things like that. And I just want to echo again how excited I was to sit there and just hear that we were going to have an exam and that we we're going to be face-to-face and be able to take it. But it was also entertaining to listen to all the school districts who have been either full virtual or hybrid, almost begging for options of how can we take a different exam? How can we do this differently? And what can we do? Almost like they know what's going to happen. So I'm excited based, on the work that all of you have done in this room and throughout the school district to make sure that our kids have a safe learning environment and the opportunity to be here face-to-face. I think it's going to be a huge advantage when we do take that forward exam for our kids. I want to take a moment and recognize all the substitute teachers who've been willing to assist in our building and allow us to navigate the fluid nature of face-to-face instruction in this COVID world. Special thank you to Katya Spielvogel and Angela Belkin, who have helped on numerous occasions at the elementary school. Without them, we would probably have had to close the doors maybe once or twice. And they've been magnificent and willing to step in and help out, as have all staff been flexible to fill spots. And then the last thing is really not an elementary school thing, but as a basketball coach, I want to take a moment and say thanks to Carrie Lawson for all of her work as our athletic director to make things work for all of our student athletes, despite the constant changes that we've encountered, either personally with our schools situation or dealing with our opponents or now the weather. She has been working tireless and numerous hours, so a huge thank you to Carrie as well.
Any questions for Brad?
There's a lot of sickness down there now, Brad, or is it pretty decent?
It's it's fluid. It flows. It's really, I mean, we had a day early last week where we had 12 kids out, and today we had 34, and tomorrow it could be 22. It's really, it's very fluid, and I don't have a better way to explain it. They're doing all right. It's not easy. I mean, right. And I think everybody understands that, and I hope they know that we all appreciate it. I felt bad for the kids who had guidance 2 days ago in the morning, and the first grade classroom that had to have me teach them, in the afternoon the other day. It's all hands on deck, and everybody's doing what they can, but we have a great staff and support staff that are really pitching in to make it work for kids.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Brad, for the elementary report. Aaron, superintendent report, please.
Yep, so from the last meeting, the CNC plasma cutting unit has been ordered. We're preparing to get that ready for delivery and installation right now. The Cuba City Middle School and High School Gymnasium will be getting a brand new scoreboard based on the generous donation from the Slots family. Next week, the electrical work will be completed, and then we're anticipating the actual scoreboards to be installed around the end of January, beginning of February. The second round of stimulus funding, and you'll hear me refer to this as ESSER funding 2. Those specifics should be out soon. We're anxiously awaiting kind of the specific amounts and to figure out what the eligible expenditures are for that new funding source. Governor Evers recently extended the mask order through March 20th of 2021. Remember, our district earlier approved the usage of masks on school grounds until further notice, which will likely be through the end of the school year. But that mask order was extended. A big thank you goes out to Hometown Pharmacy for their donation to the district to help offset the cost of COVID-19 requirements. That is very much appreciated from the Wilsons and Hometown Pharmacy. The Transportation Committee met tonight and kind of gave me some direction. So our next board meeting will have a transportation action item to go through. And so we'll do that in February. And then the last thing on my report, we spent the better part of a year, and actually the last time we met for a special board meeting was last February, so a while ago of 2020, to begin our goal setting process. So I just wanted to remind everybody that we did kind of settle on 5 different goals that we wanted to look into. And we're going to be digging into those a little deeper here at the board level as in the next few months. Just as a reminder, we did set 5 priority items, and they are in order based on priority. The number 1 was increased opportunities for excellence in academics, arts, and athletics. By the time we broke that down into subcategories, that one goal turned into about 20 different things. That's a very overarching goal, but we dug into it pretty deep, spent a lot of time on it. 2 is have an effective educator in each classroom. 3 is increase mental health resources. 4 is be involved with the community. And 5 is provide personalized support and mentoring. So those are the 5 that we're going to be continuing to work on. I just thought I'd bring those up as it has been a while since we've had those special board meetings. So we'll keep digging into those. That's all I had for my report.
Any questions of Aaron?
Sorry, Don.
Aaron, could you send that document out?
Yep, I'll send it out Friday.
Okay,
Yep.
Regarding the goals?
Yep.
Okay. All right. Again, thank you, administrative staff, support staff, teaching staff, for keeping the lights on and the kids in class. I know it's been challenging, and hopefully there is light in the end of the tunnel, and that next school year will be a lot closer to normal. Moving on, discussion items. COVID-19 related school changes, Aaron.
Yep. So the first thing we'll talk about today is something that came up, and it really kind of came up because a lot of other area schools were doing this, and it was allowing for a short-term virtual option for parents so that they could select that. When we started to get requests for that, They were few and far between, but we did get some. I was aware of some other schools that were doing that. And then after winter break, when we came back, we've started to get these requests daily at the high school. Once in a while at the middle school, and I think they've only gotten 2 requests at the elementary school. So we started to think a little bit more about this. Talked with a couple of board members who were getting requests and people talking to them about it also. So what we wanted to try to do is, since so many families were requesting this, our current policy does not allow for parents to say, I want to keep my kid out for a while to quarantine for any reason. It's if the county or the school says you can't come, then you can do virtual learning. So it's important to know this is not a hybrid, because we talked about hybrid back in August. This is not what this is. This is allowing kids and their families to optionally do what the county does with quarantine, saying, okay, and Pam gets a lot of these calls in the morning as well, and about 90% of those are probably family related. There's a family situation where somebody wants to do short-term virtual just for a little bit. And yes, we have a full-time virtual, but one of the problems with having such a great staff is a lot of our community members, and we do work for our community, want to have our teachers because they're good. And they have this 2-week request or a 3-week request or something. So this short-term parent selected virtual is not a hybrid. And so what I did is when I started to think we're getting enough requests now, and board members, some of you were getting requests and asked me to present what this could look like. I didn't survey the staff and ask them, hey, do you want to do this or not? Because I'd be willing to bet it'd be 90% would have said no. I'm aware of that. This is going to be a little more, or depending on how many kids do it, could be a lot more work on teachers. This was a community driven request from families. So I did reach out to CCEA and said, hey, I understand the assessment part's a big part, but what are some other things, if I've got to say this is how we're going to do it, what are some other things as teachers you would want in there? And the Cuba City Educators Association gave me some feedback, and a lot of those things ended up in here that I'll talk about shortly. Then I said, okay, those were good ideas. A lot of these I hadn't thought of. Let's send it out to everybody and see if everybody has some other ideas to get back into. And we got about 20 responses from staff. Those are in your packet as well. And, and they range of those 20, about a quarter of them said, oh, this is really a good service for parents that need this. Another 25% just didn't like it and said that we didn't do this before, we shouldn't do it now. And then some other ones had some really good things for us to consider, like what's the time length? How many times can people have this? And like some things for us to think about. So we got good feedback from the CCEA. We got good feedback from the staff who wanted to try to make this the best type of short-term virtual option that we can. And so some things that we came up with, and after talking this through, we've only gotten 2 requests at the elementary school, and when we thought about it, we're not going to be recommending that this is even an option at the elementary school, because really when parents can use the parental excuse for those kids, and they miss school. At the middle school, high school, when kids are quarantined because of who they sit by in a class, it impacts if they're taking nursing courses and taking clinicals at Southwest Tech. It impacts whether they're in a regional dance class or their sports activities. They can't do those things. And at the elementary school, it's not like that. And based on our conversation as a board, we don't really think that virtual options at the elementary school, although sometimes they're necessary, they're not great. So we're not going to be recommending that we even pass this at the elementary. But the middle school and high school are where kids start to do things outside of school that are impacted by quarantines. So what we came up with is basically the bullet points on your sheet. So parents can request this option, but they have to request it 1 week before they need it. That's going to give the teachers, they'll request it to the principal. The teachers will have some time to get ready. The short-term option is provided for students to isolate themselves from their classmates in school before, after, and during an event, whatever that event is. The majority of the requests we're getting are family-related events, but we do have some for work. We do have some for school outside of our school. They're taking courses somewhere else. And we do have some for athletics. So the teachers said, hey, could we have a minimum and max? Right now, we're kind of suggesting a minimum number would be 9 days. And the reason we got 9 days is looking at the CDC recommendations. If you just use the low numbers of between 4 to 6 days, about so many percentage of the people develop symptoms. So if you use 4 days before the event, 1 day of the event, and 4 days after, that's 9. Something the teachers felt strongly about is, hey, can we make sure that it's long enough that it covers the time period after the event as well as before? The families, if they're going to go to either a family wedding or they're going to go to a grandma's 90th birthday party, they might want to quarantine for a period of time before they see grandma. And then the teachers are saying, okay, we get that, but can we have them quarantine a little bit after that to make sure the staff are safe as well? So we have a suggested time of 9 would be and these are calendar days. 9 would be the smallest, 29 would be the most you could ask. 29 is taking the full 14 days, 1 day of the event and 14 days. And parents would be able to look at it and say, okay, with our event, with taking a look at what our risk is going to that event, we're going to choose this time period. So that was something that teachers felt strongly about. Make sure that there's time there. Then teachers said, let's make sure students are virtually present with camera on and in sight, because sometimes people have the camera on, as teachers tell them, and then they put the camera up to the ceiling. So they can't really see them, but our teachers want to engage with kids in class. Then there's something about turning the assignments in the day they're due for everybody else. Teachers will be available to meet with kids on a regular basis, but between the school working hours of 7:30 to 3:45, we don't want teachers to be working with kids during the day and then feel like they have to do all their check-ins from 5 to 9 at night with all the students that might be virtual. And any and all tests, quizzes, or assessments the teachers feel need to be done in person. That's up to the teacher what those are. Will be done at school the day of the assessment, and we'll find a place for them in school where they can come and take that assessment where they're 6 feet away from everybody for 15 minutes or more. So those are a lot of the things that teachers kind of came up with. So because this is becoming a more frequent request I believe it was 21 schools in CESA 3 replied to the survey about this. Every school outside of Cuba City, Dodgeville, and North Crawford have this option. Dodgeville and North Crawford have been either hybrid or virtual most of the year, one of those two. So that's kind of some of the background knowledge. Now, again, this is where we have to weigh some of this. I think this is a family-friendly approach that allows families the things that they're asking for right now during a pandemic when everybody's kind of bending. But understand, this is going to put more pressure on our teachers. And it's not one of those, this is not a black or white issue. I'm sure everybody can see both sides of that. If I am a middle school teacher and I have 2 kids that are virtual and then another 2 kids do it and go to 4, that may not be a big deal if I go from 2 to 4. And I can't predict how many kids will do this, but let's say I'm a high school teacher, let's say I'm Susan, and I've got a class of 17, and I have 2 kids that are virtual, but then during some point of the time, now we've got 10 kids that are virtual. That's gonna be rougher on teachers. And I can't say, I think our kids like being in school. I can't predict how many kids would take advantage of this and when that will be. That would be impossible. So I've talked to you guys as board members a lot about some of those decisions. You only get 1 vote, and a lot of them, it's 51 to 49. And so 51% of us is going to say, yep, we want to approve this and allow this to happen or not. So if you look at the back of your handout, it kind of go through some of the things to think about. Safety. If there are fewer people in the building, fewer kids, that's less kids that are quarantined by the county. less chance of our staff getting sick when there are fewer kids in the building. Teacher workload, we talked about that. It is going to be an increase in the teacher workload, but that's dependent on how many kids take advantage of it, and that would be a guess at this point, not even an educated guess, would be a guess. Family first, we talk a lot about that at the board level, and in our school, we try to provide things that are family friendly, and we don't want to be one of those organizations that preaches family friendly but practices things that aren't family friendly. Administrative recommendation, we're recommending below here in option 3, where it says allow parent selected virtual options for all middle school and high school kids with a maximum number. And we talked about 1 or 2. 1, I think, is just too limiting. If you have 2, especially if people want 2 shorter ones, 2 makes more sense. If you have 2 people that quarantine for 30 calendar or 29 calendar days each, that's almost half the semester. But, and some people might do that. I think the vast majority, if we allow them 2 of these opportunities, I don't know how many people are going to use 30 both times, but know that that is an option. I mean, that they could do that. So administratively, we'll be recommending option 3, which is just for middle school and high school. So a maximum of 2 requests with a minimum of 9 days recommended and a maximum of 29 based on those CDC recommendations. So at this time, I'll field any questions from board members, and board members, if you guys want to ask questions, the other board members as well, we can do that.
Do we know how many of the 30 kids on a daily basis are on average are at the high school or middle school?
And would you have a better guess?
So it says that on average, we have roughly 30 kids that are virtual every day. Do we know how many of those on average are at the middle or high school versus the elementary?
The majority would be at the high school.
And those are temporary virtual that you're referring to, not the ones that signed up for long-term?
Quarantine.
Okay.
Quarantine or isolated. Yeah.
Okay, how are we gonna give the teachers time to prepare for this?
So right now, we shifted our 90 minutes on Fridays. That was 90 minutes of basically kind of district provided things. We've cut that in half. So it's 45 minutes to give them an extra prep every week. So that's what we have done.
Is that enough for them to do this?
It depends on who you ask, probably.
Is there any way, if they need more, how do they go about getting that?
Well, and that depends on if you have an extra 2 kids at that time, it's probably not going to be a lot more work. But if you get 30, then it's going to be a little different. We would evaluate that. We have things on Fridays that we think we have to get done. But if a lot of people use this, is that an option? That is an option, but right now that's not an option we want to use.
How would you regulate that? I mean, each teacher works a little differently. You know, if they got the same students throughout, it's going to be easier for one and harder for another. You know, we got to take care of our staff because they've had a heck of a year.
Mm-hmm.
We all have. You know, and then we got to throw this in their lap. I mean, I can understand why, but we also got to look at what it's doing to them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. There's 2 sides of this for sure.
Yeah.
And you're right, Chuck, when we have the information from the staff, some say they don't feel it would be that much different because we already have kids that are quarantined. So I'm already addressing those kids that are quarantined. And we have some staff that, yeah, they're reflecting they would need more time to plan. So it's both.
It's a double-edged sword.
What about like hands-on classes? You got shop and stuff like that. I mean, you're out 30 days, you're missing.
Yep.
I mean, I don't think you can pass a class like shop or anything like that if you're missing that many days. I mean,
The hands-on classes are definitely more
the hands-on
difficult.
classes, I mean, I don't think that's even an option for them, is it?
Yeah, we did it last year. It wasn't great, but those people who do teach hands-on classes, it's much more difficult.
Mhm.
Where I think if we have the assessments that people can come in for and schedule, that's helpful.
Mhm.
But you're right, the project-based things where you need to be in, like tech ed and shop are going to be more difficult than some of the other classes. For sure.
Well, how much advanced notice does a teacher or get or a parent have to give?
Well, right now, if somebody's quarantined, teachers get they get the notice that morning. Yeah, that's it. Or even after sometimes, yeah. Like, it's not uncommon for us to quarantine a kid at 10:30 because of a phone call we get at 10:20.
So in essence, Tina, for instance, could show up, at 7:45 and learn that, yesterday's 2 kids on virtual are now 20.
Yes.
So could you briefly, and I'm gonna just pick on Tina because maybe she understands the technology that she can relate to me. So what does that look like at the high school if I'm virtual today?
As a teacher or a student?
Student.
Well, a student, we're one-to-one with their Chromebook, so they have that at home. So they'd get on their Google Meet, and we would want them to be virtually present with their screen on. High school students aren't always good about that. So as a teacher, you're trying to see your screen that's in front of you, but a lot of teachers don't just stand in front of the computer. They're walking around there trying to engage. And then sometimes you might forget about the computer. Not gonna lie. So it's not always an ideal situation. And sometimes we have where the Google Meet doesn't always work, and we have to do some of that stuff, but it's doable. It works, but it's not ideal.
So if I have, 5 classes during the day, the expectation would be that high school student would be online 5.
They're supposed to be like they're in school. So from 8 o'clock to 3:30, they're supposed to be online. That's the expectation.
And attendance is taken by the
Yep.
individual teacher.
Yep.
Would they actually look to see that Aaron's logged into the computer and I can see his face? And if he can't, it's an absence or?
Yep, then they're absent. But right now, if they're virtually present, that comes from the office, so that's already marked. So the teachers don't have to worry about that so much. But if the kid is supposed to be virtually present and they don't show up, then we keep track of that.
I know there's no penalty this year for absenteeism, but in essence, what effect does that have upon a grade? Meaning that I sign up for these 29 days virtually and I'm there half of them. What impact does that have on their final grade? Because I don't have a clue.
Yeah, and that probably varies from teacher to teacher.
Well, and they're missing all that content, so they're not getting that information. And then you might, then all of a sudden they come back after those 29 days, and then they want their stuff now, and how are we gonna make this up? Well, they were supposed to do it here. So how do we get, that is a problem.
I don't know, Sue, can I pick on you for English? So I missed 14 days out of my 29 that I'm supposed to, be online with you learning English. How are you gonna handle me?
Like Mrs. Burkett said, it's very difficult because a lot of the kids, I do have a lot of feeling planners. And, when I walk by my computer and see that, I can get them back on. But if I'm not standing right in front of my computer all the time, it's very hard. Lots of the kids have computer issues. When you're on Google Meet, Schoology is very slow. Loading something that we're in is very slow. I present my screen a lot so they can see what I'm talking about. And that loads very slowly when you're in Google Meet. So it's not smooth. And going around, in English, talking to kids what's wrong and what do you need to do, what question do you have. It's very hard to keep the virtuals engaged while you're still talking to the people in the classroom. It's hard, I don't lie. But yeah, missing 29 days. I mean, if we do something even like a formative assessment, or instead of if there's an assessment, they come in. So if we do something like, 10 questions, boom, boom, will take you 5 minutes. I mean, they can be looking it up on the line. I don't know that. I can't really see that unless I'm just sitting there watching the screen and then not watching anybody else's. So it's difficult. But yeah, just the fact of being face to face, we've talked about is so much better. 29 days, I just dropped my jaw. I didn't realize it'd be that much. That's a lot. So yeah, in my opinion, yes, it's going to affect your grade.
Okay, thank you. Is there a problem, Tina, with our system that would is created by more students going virtual, it's slowing down, everyone's, ability to access, or is that just based on your home internet?
It has a lot to do with home internet, and we do try to provide the hotspots, which we've been keeping up with that. So if the student does have that issue at home, we can give them that free hotspot. As far as here, if we have a lot of people on Google Meets here, sometimes it does bog down our system. Sometimes it doesn't. It just sometimes depends on the day.
Google's pretty responsive. Sometimes
Yep.
it shuts down and it just doesn't work for an hour.
Yep.
They're pretty good at, okay, give us an hour, we'll fix it.
Yeah, it might not be on our end. We'll get a
Right.
thing from Google Meet's not working, or even Gmail's not working. But that's the way of the world with technology too.
All right, thank you for trying to help me with making my decision. Questions?
So just to build off of that, because I'm looking at the bulleted list that you provided, Aaron, it does say students must be virtually present with the camera on and in sight at the start of the period. If that student is not present for part or all of 5 days or fails to complete tasks assigned asynchronously, the truancy process starts. So it wouldn't go 29 days without contact, correct? Like after 5, we would, hey, we gotta do
Yep,
something.
there would be contact.
Yeah,
It's-
yeah.
It's just a lot easier to make sure kids are engaged when they're in a seat than, sometimes people don't
Yeah.
answer the phone, and if they're not answering the phone, it's really hard for us to get them involved that way.
Other questions?
I'm gonna go back to the number 30, and if the majority are at the high school, I'm trying to, and I don't know if we can get to these numbers, but if the majority of our high school, aren't we already doing this?
We're doing it when the county says you're quarantined.
So
Yes.
I think the way I take it is there's gonna be more than 30, possibly.
And I guess I'm just trying to wrap my head around, if I already have 2 virtual, is it different if I have 6 virtual?
It may not be that different from 2 to 6, but like, what if it goes from 2 to 10? And I don't know what that magic number is, and it probably depends on what class they're teaching and the kids that are in there. But 2 to 4, probably not gonna be a big difference for the teacher, but there's gonna be that number where there is a significant difference.
And can I ask another question? How many, like, we get these requests daily, is it just like 1 a day, 6 a day, 12 a day?
1 to 4 or 5.
I know we don't have any way of predicting how many people would request this, but
Are we talking 29 calendar days or 29 school days?
It's 29 calendar days, because we're talking like quarantine numbers, the low end versus the high end from the CDC. So it'd be calendar.
6 days out of that 29.
Right. And those are recommended numbers, so
Right.
parents know, like, but
Right.
they're gonna look at it and say, if this is our event that we're planning for, how many days do we need? Do we need this or that? But we wanted to provide some guidance, even if it's just a suggestion, but let parents pick that.
it sounds like from the teachers, if that period was shorter, it would be easier,
You need
from what I'm hearing. I get the.
I think if you
14
polled the
full size.
teachers, you'd hear that not making this option would be their preferred
Yeah.
mode.
Meeting option 3, you mean? Or
No, like that, nobody would make a motion tonight to do that. That would be the preference.
were you, Sarah, though, suggesting that it be less than 29 days, or did I misunderstand?
That's what I was asking, if that's, makes it more palatable, I guess.
Okay, that's what I thought you were asking. And is there a number that you're thinking?
No.
Other questions?
With the other schools in CISA 3 that are doing this, when you were reaching out, was there any sort of best practice or support service or anything you can do to make it a little easier on teachers? Because it is a really big ask.
Yeah,
Having family who teaches 2 to 4 is still a big jump, depending on the student.
But depending on the student.
I think that's a great point, depending on the student.
Yeah.
You know, and like we said, like, the example with Susan, she might have a student that doesn't come on during that time, and you might have a very studious student that the family chooses to do this, and you know they're gonna be on every day, and they're gonna do exactly what you tell them to do. So it's hard to know the stressors that might come with it, depending on who would choose the option. Because every situation is different, which makes all of this difficult. It made it difficult to keep the numbers. When we were asked to talk about how many days we're gonna pick, it was like, we want them here, and I said the same thing, like, 29, that's a lot of days not having them in the building. All those things were talked about when we.
Well, and the 29 comes from the 14 before and the 14 after.
Assuming it's a one-day event.
Right.
That's kind of what we talked about was, if this is what we had going on, if we do 14 days before, so we're guaranteed we can attend whatever the event is, and then 14 after, so that we don't affect everybody in the school if we were exposed to something at that event. And it was a very difficult administrative discussion because it was, and then we were like, well, if they're gonna use up to 29 days, we only let them do it once, because now we're looking at 60 days of
9 days.
out of a 90 day,
9 days left in the semester.
you know,
I mean, that's
You're a third of it.
2/3, you know, if they did it twice, yeah.
The 90 days doesn't count weekends.
Are we suggesting though that it's like it needs to be 14 day before and 14 after, or the parent could pick like, I only want to do 5 before and 5 after?
We talked a great deal. We wanted to provide some guidance for parents and allow them to make the decision based on what they're doing and what that event is. But they had something to say, okay, this would be like a suggested minimum, this would be a suggested.
So yes, it was 9 to 29 day option, or 9 or a 29 day option. If I thought I understood it.
Yep.
Or anywhere in between. No?
Yep,
Or it is?
that's the
Okay.
suggested range. So when parents, if they fill out a Google form, they would tell us what that number would be. But we wanted to provide some guidance on things they should consider.
So if we selected option 3, Aaron, what kind of guidance do you give the teaching staff then on the conversations that we just had with regard to, you know, students and, you know, I mean, in essence, you know, are the teachers going to allow all the kids to make up the work? Because they just chose not to, you know, sign in that day, or?
I think every teacher probably handles that differently. I think every teacher right now has had kids that are quarantined and have their procedures. So again, we're continuing what they would do if a kid was quarantined by the county. So whatever their procedures would be there. The only difference is if I'm given a test on Friday, I'm expecting that kid to come in on Friday. And then we would have to try, the office would work with those teachers to figure out where we're gonna have those kid tests. You know, we can test so many kids in the office, we might have to use somebody else's room during a prep period or something like that. But as far as those types of things, I think every teacher has had to deal with kids that are quarantined already. So.
Do we have a student limit to this?
We have not, no.
So we could have a lot of kids out.
We could have a lot or a little, yep.
That puts a bigger load. What's that do to our account for the state?
Nothing.
Nothing?
Because they're virtually present.
As long as they're virtually present.
Yeah, I mean, we had this discussion. Football starts in the spring, and I know a group of kids decide that we don't want to miss any football games, so we all decide that, you know, playing around the football event, it could be that many kids. I mean, we have no idea what event people are going to pick and choose.
Right,
And that's,
right. Or basketball or wrestling.
Right, yeah, anything.
You know, it's just, I mean, it's tough.
Are there any other questions?
Well, academically for the kids, what's the best?
Academically, we feel it's best if they're present.
Right, and that's what we've been preaching since we made these decisions, right?
Yep.
You know, that's what it comes back to academically. What's best for these kids is to be in school and getting that education. I look at hands-on. That's where I have a hard part, is the hands-on part. And 60 days too. But then say they come back on day 61, exposed to somebody, there's 14 more. And if we do go with this, I don't think if you're choosing to be out of school virtually, be against being forced to quarantine, I don't think the rules should be the same. It should be a higher standard for the ones that are choosing to be gone. I mean, you should be there, logged on, the camera should be on your face. And I mean, there's got to be accountability if you're choosing to stay home, opposed to being forced to being home. I mean, that's if we go with that. That's my opinion. I don't think the standard should be the same. Because these kids aren't choosing to be home if they're quarantined. You know, they're being forced to be home, and it's a different situation as if you're choosing to be there. But
I think we've all been in agreement that face-to-face is best, but I mean, this has been almost a year now, and I think kids are missing out on a lot of things, and it's tough all around. I mean, I don't want to put any more work on the teachers, but for families too, it's really tough missing a lot of things, and it's been a long time.
And parents do know their kids. If they think virtual learning is not for you, then parents won't allow them to do this. But if somebody says, you know what, we have something that's important to us, no matter what that is, and my kid can learn virtually, this allows them that. So, you know, we're not forcing anybody to do it, but making it an option, and parents know their kids best. And they'd be able to either make that decision, yes or no, based on how their kid has done with virtual learning so far.
We saw from the survey that families and parents do want their kids face-to-face, so I would hope that if we do go down this route, that they're still believing that, but it's something that's important enough to them to make that decision for their children and hold them accountable. It's not on the teacher to chase them down, like they still need to be accountable for their grades and their work. I know the teachers are very invested too and don't want to let anybody slip through the cracks, so I know that's a double-edged sword.
I would like to take this time just before we move on to go back to the parents that are in the audience. If you have anything you want to say after hearing our conversation, before we in essence then get to actually voting on what we're going to do.
Yeah, I guess I would just like to reiterate, it exists today, right? The teachers are not saying it's not another thing to deal with, but they have the online students today with all the quarantines that have been going on, that never ends, for some students, it seems like. And so I feel like if that student is not being present in all the virtual times that we've done, then there's a problem there that should be addressed regardless, because they're probably not a good student in the class to my death either. There's probably some lapses. So, I mean, I just want to reiterate that to me, if a student's not, and we did the virtual times, right? We did it after Thanksgiving, we did it after Christmas. I mean, and so I would have assumed if that student then was not being present in virtual, it would have been addressed there. So I feel like we really need to make sure these are high school and, you know, middle school students that we're saying, and the parents are the ones dictating this. So I really feel like we should have that accountability for them accounted for if they're going to be virtual to be there. So, and I agree, it's been a long time for everyone. And I think seeing the flexibility that other schools have with this, it is hard when we're the only school and we're thinking we are the ones who say we love Cuba City, we love the community, we love how they care about what our kids need, but we're not giving them options. And I feel like that's something that, you know, we take pride in. And so I do think we want to make sure we're thinking of that too. And again, it's been a long time. So I feel like this is a really good time to reevaluate and offer that up to finish the school year with that. I think that shows the flexibility that at one time we made a different decision. Now we looked at it and we want to offer flexibility. So I just think for the kids' sakes, I think that we really need to focus on that.
I think to piggyback on what Molly said and also what Sarah said, my child is one of those kids that has been out 4 different times. So he's hit the marks of the 2 times 28 days. Never once had a symptom, have made the right choices by coming to school, and that's got him in trouble. So for him, being a senior, it has been a long time, and I think now we have readdressed this, we have to address this a little differently. He's been taken away to homecomings, a prom, and many game opportunities that he would love to be involved with because people have demanded him to be at home. So it does come to a point where does the community care about the children, about their mental health, about what they believe is very, very important to them to give them this opportunity. So he's done very well being virtual for 4 different times. I think as parents, we can certainly make good choices with our children involved with that. And it should be a choice, as many things haven't been choices for us thus far in the past 11 months.
Thank you. Anyone else?
We've got a son who's a senior, and they only go through high school 1 time, and academics is very, very important. He's an honor student. Cuba City Schools has done a great job with education for our kids. When he does virtual, he's been virtual twice now for quarantine. Never came down with any symptoms. He goes on class, gets on there all the time. It's a senior year. He missed out last year with his 12 or 13 teammates on an opportunity to go to state. He missed out on his junior year at track. If he happens to get quarantined because of some contact again in a few weeks, and again misses out on another opportunity to go to state for basketball, that does affect them. Academics are important, but so are other parts to an 18-year-old boy or a 17-year-old girl, or whatever activity they're in. It might be dance, it might be something else. Okay, he's got track season coming up. And the same thing, he missed out on his entire junior year. If he ends up getting quarantined because of a contact in school, he's going to miss out on a lot of that. And I think the spring sports are maybe shortened up a little bit or compressed because of getting another sport in there. So again, academics are very, very important. And Cuba City has done a great job, but there are other parts that are also very important to these kids. This is the only time they go through high school.
And I'd like to add that I ask that you remember, this is a parent-led decision, not a juvenile delinquent decision. These are parent-led decisions. I take some offense over the last year that the parents aren't able and don't have much choice. I believe the school right now is giving the parents back a little bit of choice in the experience of these years.
And he doesn't want to do, I think it's Ed mentioned, he doesn't want to do that. He wants to be here when he can. There are classes that he's looking forward to his last semester. He wants to be with his friends, but he also doesn't want the potential to come across a student who tests positive and get that dreaded call from the county that you have to be out for 2 weeks when it may be his last opportunity for a tournament in basketball or his last opportunity for track. He doesn't want to miss those, and he wants to be a part of the school when that doesn't conflict.
And right now it's a somewhat of just a guilty by association. And when there is a guilty by association, it seems the parents, I appreciate this vote, that the parents would have some opportunity to make a common sense decision on our end. That we see what's coming up in our family's life. So for instance, for Jack, it may be a surgery. He broke his nose last fall. He has issues breathing. He has a septal issue he's got to have repaired. And if that opportunity comes up and he loses that opportunity because he was again sitting next to somebody, these are things that parents are deciding, not kids who aren't going to show up because they don't want to go to school. We've let Grant County decide when our kids come and go.
Right now, we're asking for a vote that the parents can decide. Please keep that in mind. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? All righty. We're going to move on then to the COVID-19 vaccination. Aaron?
Yep. So we recently learned educators will be qualifying in phase 1B for the rollout for the vaccine. We will find out where we are on this list this Friday, January 22nd. We'll know more about the priority list. I don't know if we'll know the timeline. We might or we may not. But we know that educators are going to be on that list. We don't know where they will align. So Hometown Pharmacy reached out to us hearing that and said, hey, we can order these vaccines for you. We don't know when they're going to come in. We don't have a timeline, but Hometown Pharmacy is able to administer the vaccine. And since they're just a few blocks away, we polled our teaching staff, and about 85% of our staff said that they would like to take the vaccine. And since it's right here, Mr. Wilson at Hometown Pharmacy said, we'll just have a sign up when people want to come during whatever time they can during the day. He said, we'll make sure to get them in and out of here quickly. So that's where we are right now. I'm very anxious for Friday to know where we line up, and then even more anxious to find out kind of when we can get that date. So I wanted to bring that up for you guys. I know that legally we can require the vaccine. I'm unaware of any school in Wisconsin right now doing that. I think everybody just is strongly suggesting it for the safety of their school. But we can require it. I don't think anybody is pushing to have that requirement. And but I wanted to bring that up. I'm strongly suggesting our staff get it, and about 15% have said no, not at this time, but 85% have said yes. So I'm just going to open that up if you guys have any questions or want to talk about anything vaccine related.
I found out yesterday that Grant County started vaccinating police, fire, and people over 65. I called and I got my shot at 3 o'clock today. I'm still living. There were 4 other people from Cuba City in line in front and behind me. So at this point, thank you to the 85% who said they would get it, and I guess I would urge the other 15% to consider it. Hearing nothing else, we will move on to new business.
All right.
Approve the 21-22 and 22-23 school calendars, Aaron.
Yep, looking at 21-22, we started a few years ago approving 2 years at a time, really just so parents knew when the breaks are going to be to better allow them to plan for trips for their family. That's really why we go with 2. So we're looking at 21-22 first. We have about an extra 1.9 days built in the high school or in the calendar. The way that the minutes of instruction works, K6 has fewer minutes of instruction, 7-12 have more. So if you're wondering why it says over in the high school, it's really 7-12. So the model has 1.9 days over the required minutes. That allows for about 7 or 8 late starts. Some years we're going to have those, some years we may not, but early dismissals or late starts. We talked last year about we were usually between 3 and 4 days over. We would give the first 3 days for snow days, and since virtual learning is a thing now, the board last year decided let's not build in the extra 3 days. Let's get out sooner in the year, and we'll go virtual on those snow days. So that's what these 2 calendars represent. So next year's school year still has short breaks in February, March, and April, about 4 days off. The year after that, 22-23, has the full week off preceding Easter, so the week before Easter. But really, when we take away those 3 days of snow days, now you're talking late May and early June dismissal. So next year, last day of school with students is June 1st. The year after that, 22-23, the last day with students is May 31st. And before, when we didn't have the virtual option, sometimes you'd have to add days to the end of the calendar. This way we do not. So those are some of the things we talked about last year that found their way into the calendar. So are there any questions on either the 21-22 or 22-23 calendar?
Was 21-22 already approved a year ago?
That was, we made some
So
minor
early.
changes, but we kept all the vacations the same.
So it's a revised 21-22.
It's a revised 21-22 and a brand new 22-23. Yeah.
No questions? Okay. Hearing none, would somebody move?
I'll move to approve the 2021-22 and the 2022-23 school calendars as presented.
Is there a second?
I'll second. Andrews,
Yes.
Bowden,
Yes.
Collins.
Yes.
Hinderman, yes. Poole,
Yes.
Schrader,
Yes.
White,
Yes.
motion carried.
Item B, designate the number of seats available for open enrollment for regular education, Aaron.
Okay, so basically, we're not recommending we have any restrictions for regular education, and here's why. So the way open enrollment works is there's a 3-month period, usually from the beginning of February to the end of April, where people can apply to be in our district. That's the regular open enrollment period. The other 9 months of the year is called the alternate open enrollment period. If we put a restriction on any grade level, let's say at 5th grade, we cap it. Then for that whole school, not just the grade level, that whole school year, we can't take any open enrollment in the other 9 months. And we get a lot of kids in the alternate years. So at this point, we don't think any of our classrooms are to the point where we can't. And if we do get to that point, we're probably more likely to add a 3rd section than try to cap it, because it would financially impact us those other 9 months. So at this point, we do not want to have any seat limits for open enrollment for next year.
Is there any questions or concerns regarding that recommendation? Would somebody move?
I'll move to approve unlimited number of available seats available for open enrollment for regular education students as presented.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Andrews.
Yes.
Bowden,
Yes.
Collins.
Yes.
Hinderman, yes. Poole,
Yes.
Schrader,
Yes.
White,
Yes.
motion carried.
Item C, designate the number of available seats available for open enrollment for special education students.
So what we've done the previous 3 years is we've capped certain sections. So we don't have the same requirement as general education for special ed. We can categorize it and say we don't have room in this area, but that doesn't impact the other 9 months for the other areas. So this is a continuation of what we've done the last 2 school years, where we will be capping the number of kids in K-5 and 6-12 cross-categorical special education programs, because at this point, we feel like we're already at the maximum capacity of where we are with our current staff.
Are there any questions regarding that recommendation? Would somebody move?
I'll move to approve the designated number of available seats available for open enrollment for special education students as presented.
Is there a second?
Second.
Andrews,
Yes.
Bowden,
Yes.
Collins.
Yes.
Hinderman, yes. Poole,
Yes.
Schrader,
Yes.
White.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Item D, approve the COVID-related school educational options addition, which is what we just discussed. And if I am correct, Aaron, the recommendation was for option 3 or C or whatever it
Yep.
was.
The administrative recommendations, option 3, allow parent-selected virtual options for all middle and high school students with presented stipulations. Listed above include a maximum number of parent requests, 2, along with a minimum and maximum number of days, and that's going to be probably suggested instead of allowed. Again, allowing the parents some choice there between those 9 and 29 days.
Is there any questions? Comments?
So now what you're saying is it would be a suggestion between 9 and 29?
Yeah, I
If
think we want
somebody
to.
wanted to go 40, that would be allowed, or can we limit it to 21?
If somebody makes a motion to limit it, yeah, those are just my recommendation, but if you want to put a different cap on there, we can change that and say option 3 has a maximum number of this many days. So again, the reason we picked 14 is that's the maximum number of days that the CDC would say is an appropriate quarantine date.
Is that what Grant County's been using as well? Oh, I know that's a loaded question,
It
but.
sure is. Right, Pam? So Grant County is suggesting people use 10 days for quarantine and get tested on day 6 and 7. But they're really not allowing schools to do that. Now, that's if they're a confirmed case. So if we wanted to put that in there, that, we wouldn't have to use those. That's just how I came up with those numbers of 9 to 29.
I was just, when he said 21, somehow that event day plus or minus 10.
Yeah, he was probably thinking 10 and 10 on either
I
side.
don't know if that's where you were coming from, Dan, but.
Yeah, it makes, we've kind of fought over that as far as what that number is, and
We have.
the CDC had said 10 is right, and then they said, no, it's gotta be 14, and whatever the case may be. But if this being an option, I would like to see that a shorter time than 29, especially if we're gonna allow 2 in the semester.
So should we have it say them along with we can identify a minimum number, or we can just say with a maximum of 21 days?
I still prefer to have a minimum for that, again, that padding for the teachers with the student coming back into the classroom.
I would agree. I like the 9.
So are you thinking 9 to 21 then? We want to put that in there?
That would be my preference.
9 to 21, and these are consecutive calendar days.
Any other thoughts or agree, disagree?
Can I ask a question? When you say 9 days, if a parent requests this leave, they have to take 9 days at least?
That's what the minimum would be.
But that's a good point, then. Could we make that shorter if they consider the weekend before and then those 5 days of school, and maybe their event is on Sunday, then they've already got 8 days in? Like, do they have to take the 9?
It's 9 days total, correct? So it would be 4 before. So if your event was on Saturday, you could do Tuesday through Friday. If your event Saturday, Sunday would count, and then you'd only have to miss 3 of the following week. So you could do 7 school days. In theory, that wouldn't work for every situation. So that's why 9, I think, if I'm doing math right.
Yep.
Their calendar days, not school days.
Yeah,
Yes.
calendar days, not school days. I think having the minimum number of days hopefully protects that'll make people quarantine beforehand and after, and then we're taking better care of our staff because we're saying, it should be so many days afterwards too.
Don, you have any questions, thoughts?
I like that idea.
So board, if Dan was gonna make a motion for 9 to 21 days, do you have a problem with that before we actually vote and you just simply say no?
Do you need to specify how those 9 days fall? Are we saying it's 9 days and somebody could say, well, that would be 9 days before I leave?
Do we want to say 9 days with at least 4 days after the event?
Does the COVID committee want to police when the event is?
Well, yeah.
Because we're not gonna know for sure. And some of the requests we had were for like a week vacation. That's what we've had lately, like we're gonna go for a week vacation, so we would like to have our kids out the week prior. So that's something to think about too, because then if you're retiring days after, be a week before, a week after, or the week of the vacation would fall in there too, plus the quarantine after. I just know we've had how many requests for trips, this week and last week. It's about family vacations.
I would think that if we're gonna grant it, we don't tell them when or how. It's either yay or nay, I guess.
Because they're gonna fill out a form. We won't know whether that's, we have to trust our parents.
Other questions? Good questions. Keep them coming.
I don't have a question, I just have a comment of, I appreciate all the discussion that's happening. It's not an easy decision. I think everybody is speaking from a place of having the kids and the community's best interest in mind. And I just want to say that again, no matter how the vote goes.
You've been very consistent and positive. Thank you. I think it's time for a motion.
I'll move to approve the COVID-19 related school changes as presented in option number 3. You want me to read it?
No, option number 3 is I had read it. And it's 9 to 21 days then. Minimum of 9, maximum of 21 is what option 3 now says.
And maximum parent requests of 2.
Yes.
Are there questions regarding that motion then as it reads? All right, is there a second?
I will second.
Andrews,
Yes.
Bowden,
Yes.
Collins,
No.
Hinderman, yes. Pohl,
No.
Schrader,
Yes.
White.
Yes.
Motion carried.
All right, thank you, board. Personnel, approve the hiring of Kristen Slot as the assistant advisor for the high school play and musical. Aaron?
Yep, we're gonna be pretty creative with how we do the play and musical this spring, but we're glad that we have somebody on staff that is willing to be the assistant advisor, and we think Kristen will do a great job.
Are there any questions regarding that hire? Would somebody move?
I'll move to approve the hiring of Kirsten Slot as the assistant advisor for the CCHS play and musical as presented.
Is there a second?
Second.
Andrews,
Yes.
Bowden,
Yes.
Collins,
Yes.
Hinderman, yes. Pohl,
Yes.
Schrader,
Yes.
White.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Committee reports, budget and finance.
We'll likely be scheduling a meeting in the spring when we get some ESSER 2 funding things. We'll go through that with the budget and finance committee, so they know how we're looking at allocating those dollars and how we spent the CARES dollars as well.
Can you share where you're at budget-wise with the board at some point?
Yep.
That, you know.
Actually,
that's meeting.
next month, we're gonna add Heather to the administrative reports.
Good idea.
And so every month you'll be getting kind of an update on the budget from Heather.
All right, we'll see you in February. Building and grounds, we got a great report tonight.
Good job.
Curriculum, instruction, and assessment, Aaron.
We'll meet in June to go through a review of the year.
Personnel did not meet. Is there a need?
We will soon as we'll start to get health insurance.
Okay, thanks. Policy, is there a need to meet there?
Not until they tell us they've got some revisions.
Technology and transportation, we met tonight regarding busing. Dan, you want to just give a brief synopsis?
Our current contract ends at the end of this school year for our busing contract. We are going to be proposing that we do a 2-year extension to explore our options, possibly working with Southwestern on busing contracts together as 2 districts. So next month we'll be bringing that to the board.
Thank you. Foundation,
We meet next Wednesday.
next Wednesday. CISA 3, I don't really have anything. I would accept the motion to adjourn.
I'll second.
All in
I
favor?
guess I made the motion to adjourn.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, everybody, for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you, Don.
Take care.